brother, that you, oh my brother, you are going through times of difficulty. I know sometimes you feel all alone. Call me anytime when you feel all the way down.
Oh, trials and temptations lie at every corner we turn. It's a test from Allah to see if we succeed or not.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah. And may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His Prophet Muhammad, His family and His followers all, until the day of resurrection. Let me welcome every one of you today to the new episode of Meet Your Advisor here on Huda TV. And of course, every Friday at 9 p.m. Mecca time, we are meeting. And of course, today's topic for me is very significant because I do have this concern of those who are part of our society, but yet we need to look after them, and these are the disadvantaged people who do not have enough to go by in life. As we have studied in economics, for example, we have the haves and the have-nots. We have those people who do have enough supply, enough provision, enough things in life to go by, but there are also people who are on poverty level, maybe below poverty, and they are still in need, either because they cannot work or because they work, but still that's not enough for them to go by in life. So they need to work, they need to earn their living with all the work that they can do, but still they cannot get enough to meet their needs. They may have big families, they probably have children or some members of the family who are ill and who need medicine. Maybe they cannot have enough for renting. They don't have enough for all the daily needs they need to buy and rent and to pay their own bills and so on and so forth, let alone other things that may not be necessary, such as extra things for travel, for enjoyment, and so on and so forth. Yet, I think we need to look after those people who are in need. Those who, probably not only that, but that's part of the people who are in need of financial help. Those who are in need of clothing, medicine, supplies, needs for their own house tools and so on and so forth. Yet, there are people who are in need of other things. People who are in need of compassion, of care. People who are in need of intercession. Maybe people who need, those who have the ability to put forward their own cause or something that they are after, and they cannot reach their own target except through somebody who can intervene for them, who can be a mediator. And of course, that is important. Also, there are people who go astray in life. They need our advice. They need our care. They need a nice word, a supportive word, a word of warning, a word of, hey, opening your own eyes to something that you need to be looking after, something that you need to be aware of. All of these are things that come under a very big title, which is tafrijul kurubat, to make hardships easier for people, to ease up things that people may have or face. I know that we know that we ourselves are in need of others, but the need may vary from one person to another, from one family to another, from one society to another, from one nation to another. Look at the nations that are going through hardships nowadays. They need our support. They need us to look after their own medical needs, after their own financial needs, after their own supplies and food and so on and so forth. All of these are things that we need to look after. In other words, we should not be engulfed in our own life, in our own way of just only looking to be selfish. In other words, we should not be just looking after our own, but rather we should expand our horizon. We should include in our care people beyond our own circumstances. Of course, starting with your own parents and your own relatives, and the circle would expand little by little to include people in the neighborhood, people in the same city, people in nearby cities, people in other areas, and so on and so forth. But of course, when there is a calamity, when there is a disaster, when there is an emergency in some place in the world, whether this is being a Muslim or not, we need to go ahead and help these people who are in dire need for our help with financial resources, with some other resources, as much as we can, because that is going to help us in this life as well as in the hereafter. When we look at the glorious Quran and how the glorious Quran enjoins doing all the good things in life, how interesting and how grateful the Islamic view of people who do support other things, even before Muslims got into the various duties of their own religion. There was a look after the caring for the orphan, for the disadvantaged, for the people who are in need. As Allah says, for example, in Surah Al-Balad, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ وَأَنْتَ حِلٌّ بِهَذَا الْبَلَدِ وَوَالِدٍ وَمَا وَلَدٍ. This is just only the beginning of Allah swearing by Mecca as a holy place. But then, towards the end, فَلَاقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةِ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. Shouldn't you pass the obstacle, the uphill, in order to be saved? وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. And don't you know the matter or the value or the greatness and importance of this obstacle? Well, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةِ. فَكُّ رَقَبَةِ is to free a soul, to free a slave. That is one way of doing good to people. فَكُّ رَقَبَةِ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ يَتِيمًا ذَا مَقْرَبَةٍ. If you feed someone who's despaired, someone who's really in a need of food, then, or someone who has already touched the ground from poverty and malnourishment and hunger, we know that these people do exist somewhere in the world, in Africa, in some part of Asia, somewhere in Latin America. There are people all over the world who are in need of the help of those whom Allah has blessed with some resources, some money, some ability to help. And of course, people need to stand beside each other during times of calamity in particular, but throughout the times, on a daily basis, all the time, in order for Allah the Merciful to have mercy on us. Look at the hadith and the saying of the Prophet of mercy, peace be upon him, as he said, "Man yassara ala mu'sirin yassara Allahu alayhi fi dunya wal akhirah." If you ease up the condition of a Muslim who's in a hardship, Allah will make it easier for you on the Day of Judgment. And of course, the more you do to people, the more you get back, the more you earn and get, for either in this life or in the hereafter. So you have both, you are winning either way, either in this life or in the hereafter, because Allah the Almighty is so generous, and He makes these things as tests for us to see how well we do in life. That's why if you have someone in your own neighborhood, someone who's in need, go ahead and check on them. Be nice, be kind, give them some time, just like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu an, the great caliph, who did not stay in a big palace with all the guards and protection and so on. He used to go at night and check on people, because during the day he's busy running the affairs of the state, but at night, of course, they do help each other. All right, Suzanne, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam. I have a question. It's a scientific question in a sense. It's on frequencies. Today, they have scientifically proven that different frequencies can help cure cancer and do different things. Now, I know that frequencies could also be used in ways that are not productive, that are non-Islamic, like in music and different things. I would like to know if we Muslims are allowed to use frequency for sort of, not necessarily healing, but if it helps, can we use a frequency like medicine?
When you say frequency, do you mean like electric shocks? Is that?
No, the frequencies are sound frequencies.
Sound frequencies.
Yes.
In what way? Any particular sound, like musical instruments?
Yeah, well, and it's not necessarily musical. It can be put into music, which they also do, and sometimes to hypnotize people, and it does affect the brain and the brain waves. But it's a sound frequency.
Okay. All right.
And the Buddhists actually use it when they're meditating. They do also use frequencies. And in Christianity, in the choirs, they used to actually do hymns and religious hymns with certain frequencies that would hire them to a higher level.
Okay. So you're wondering how lawful this would be in Islam?
Yes, I would.
All right. Thank you so much, Susan.
If we use it medically.
Right, for healing.
Shukran.
Okay.
Assalamu
Alaikum
alaikum.
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, let me stop, since this is something that I do have emails that are waiting. But since Susan has touched upon this subject, obviously what we need to learn is that we do have the glorious Quran, which is the source of healing. And obviously we have known from studies, either in the Muslim world or in some other countries such as the US, where Dr. Ahmad al-Qadi, for example, had done some tests regarding the use of Quran for healing. And he found interesting results where the Quran was a source of healing even to non-Muslims, where they felt comfortable and they felt happy when the Quran was being recited, when they have some difficulties, and they found comfort in listening to the glorious Quran. But nonetheless, for us, of course, it's not only just a matter of enjoying the recitation or the rhythm of reciting the glorious Quran, but it goes beyond that, is that the Quran is a source of healing for both the heart and the mind and the soul and the body. All of these things, if anyone complains of any illness of any sort, obviously the Quran would be a source of healing. Now that depends on how strong you believe in that, because obviously, as the scholars would say, depending on how you use a sword, for example, the sword would be effective if a strong hand would use the sword in the right way. And the same thing happens with the glorious Quran. Well, depending on how, what is being said and how these things, of course, if this sound involves any music or musical instrument, then obviously this would not be allowed in Islam, since all the musical instruments are being prohibited except deaf in certain occasions, unhappy occasions, such as when we have marriage, if we have someone coming, like homecoming for someone who has been away for some time. These sort of things that do occur, obviously this is allowed. But other than that, we cannot use all these modern musical instruments. But if it doesn't involve that, and I don't know how that affects, of course, it does need more explanation. I'm not aware of where the effect would come from all these frequencies. Do they, for example, affect the brain? Do they affect the nerves and the nervous system? Do they affect the soul and the heart? Of course, nothing is better than the glorious Quran in this regard. And of course, to use the various dua and supplication that the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. And that would be a source of protection and a source of curement as well. So it would be used for both protection and cure. And that's why I do emphasize on that. We would have enough in that. But of course, if that is helpful, but I think you shed some light, Susan, on the use of this in for example, in churches and the singing of the choir and so on. We, of course, don't use that. Of course, our places of worship are only to listen to the glorious Quran, as you know. When we go to prayer and we stand behind the Imam, although the Imam's voice may not be the best that we have in the community, but we still can be influenced by the Quran if we understand the meaning of what is being recited and what is being said, and how strongly we are related to the glorious Quran. So I think that would be the case there. It's just a matter of advice, and if you do have something that you'd like to add and help us by sending some information, and that we can always look up the information on this particular matter in particular. All right. Leaving what we have today regarding the ease of hardships for people and helping those who are in need, obviously we need to sit together to help one another, to help all our Muslim brothers and sisters, and even non-Muslims who are in dire need. That's a way of da'wah. That's a way of approaching these people, seeking Allah's pleasure, seeking Allah's reward for doing that. This is always encouraged. As I said, this was the case during the time of the early stages of Islam, where even before prayer and fasting and almsgiving or zakah and salah and siyam and all was ordained upon Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ was asked to care for the orphan, to care for the needy and for the hungry and so on. That was the case, and we still have that principle going on. And if we are blessed with some provision, with some favors that Allah has given us, of course it's His trust with us, and we need to pass that on to people. Not, of course, distribute all what we have, but rather we pay the zakah, and we give charity, and we care for the people, and that would be helpful. It even protects us from falling into disasters, for example, or even be a subject of terrible tribulations, for example. The more just you are in the distribution of what you have, obviously the more protected you are as a society from tribulations, from chaos, from all the turmoil that may take place in any given society or nation. Going to this question from Sister Amila, I think. She says, if a woman says to her husband, All right, let me cut this and take this call. Muhammad, are you there? Muhammad.
Yes, my question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Go ahead.
Wa alaikum salam. Please, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm from Nigeria.
Yes,
My question is, two women were fighting. Two women are fighting.
Yes.
So one of them hit the stomach of the other. So the woman that his stomach was hit felt bleeding.
Go ahead.
Then subsequently that bleeding woman was carried to hospital.
Uh-huh.
After the doctor went through, then it was told that the infant died as a result of that fighting.
Okay.
So my question here is, what is the legal aspect of that woman who heated the stomach of her counterpart?
Did she lose? Did you say
This is my
miscarriage?
question. Thank you, sir.
Muhammad, wait.
Yes.
She lost her child because of the fighting.
Because of that heat.
Okay, because of that fighting. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'll answer your question, Muhammad. Thank you so much.
You life in my country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Muhammad. Well, as you know, this is very, very terrible to hear. I mean, this is very sad that two women do fight, and of course, if they fight, and then one of them would lose a child or have a miscarriage because of the fighting, they need to go to a court. I cannot decide because that has to be, they have both to sit before a Sharia court judge, and then the judge would exactly listen to both, and from there he would pass on the judgment. But of course, you know how that would be. Of course, after listening to both sides, we cannot just judge from. But everyone is responsible for whatever he or she does. Obviously, this is the main principle. We know that if anyone transgresses, if anyone does something wrong or harm another human being, this person is responsible for his own actions. And he would have to pay this, of course, he would have to pay the price for it. Now, how do we prove? You have to listen to this in a court of law, and all this would be recorded and would be listened to, and then, of course, we would pass on the judgment afterwards. But that has to be referred to a judge, and we cannot answer this just from here, because we don't know the situation fully with all the information that is needed and the concerned parties. Going back to the idea here of if a woman says to her husband that she should divorce her, is the marriage already nullified or not valid by just uttering the words? Or should the man first agree with it? Or if she did not pay the khula, is she still his wife? I hope that you'll answer me. Well, because we talked about this particular issue in the previous episode, obviously we need to emphasize the point that a woman should not push her husband towards giving her divorce. If she does without a strong reason, without a valid reason, then she would be deprived of Jannah. Because what we are after is a continuous and smooth relationship, compassion between the two sides in a marriage. Of course, we need to base it on something that is strong, that is good, but we need still to, of course, protect it. And this, if we have our own nagging style, or if we have something that comes up from now on then, which will affect that marriage, we need to stop that and we need to keep that marriage intact. How do we do that? By not allowing women to ask for it, even if something happens, or when there is a crisis, when there is a fight or something goes on, because these things do come and they will go, depending on how we deal with them. The same thing with a man. A man is supposed to lead and to head that institution of marriage with all wisdom and kindness and generosity, but sometimes this doesn't happen and clashes may take place. So if we always resort to divorce when there is difficulties or crises in our relationship, then there would not be any marriage that will last for long. The point is, we need to bear, we need to be patient, we need to ask Allah to help everyone. Depending on how we act, the other side would react to our own actions. That's why we always need to take the lead, whether being a man or a woman in that relationship. And normally it does work. Sometimes we come to a roadblock, we come to stand still or a stalemate. There is no way that we can pass that relationship, and therefore we need to settle it by divorce. But divorce should not take place when the two parties are, very angry or they are just in a fight. This is going to make it terrible. So a woman should not ask for divorce, but if she asks for it and the man gives it to her willingly without any anger that he would lose his ability to think and to understand what he was saying, then obviously this talaq or divorce would take place, and it's going to be effective. That's why they shouldn't do it. But when we come to the other thing is khula. If they agree whether the payment comes in immediately or later, of course, once the two parties agree, the khula is effective, when the payment may come in later. So the payment doesn't affect this because it will come as we say. If I buy this glass with this amount of money, it's mine even if I haven't paid it yet, because I may be asked to pay it later, or I'm just going to pay it after. But we already agreed on that. So that is the point there. I hope that your question has been answered, and inshallah we'll be back with more. So please stay around.
I heard it through a brother that you, oh my brother, you are going through times of difficulty.
Do you like to have yourself purified, your children obedient to you? Do you like your dua to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It is obligatory for every Muslim and Muslimah to pay the nasiha immediately. That's why the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw something wrong, he did not delay it. He issued that immediately. He turned his face to the Prophet and to the people and said, I swear by Allah that I have never ever seen a better educator or instructor than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you are the fourth person in the middle of the cave with those three people, you think that they will see the rays of the sun again? So the fruit of sincerity is that it had an impact on the people. but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has a prompt result or effect on the man who's doing it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us and purify our hearts and our deeds.
In your standpoint of view, are there specific or certain criteria to choose your spouse or a partner, to marry or not to marry? Maybe that's the question. Do we revise the quality of performance of our treatment between the family members as fathers or mothers? As they say usually, it's not what you say, it's how would you say it. Wouldn't you like to be a good storyteller for your kids? Neurobiologically speaking, child abuse and emotional trauma causes scars in the brain of the child, and this might be not easily healing. What's the exact job description of a father? Is it clothing, payments, and feeding, or other important things? Well, I think the job description of a father is merely giving him love and care, self-confidence, giving him sense of security, and checking for the points of strengths to stress on them. What about potty training and its planning? Oh yeah, actually, it's a state, it's a condition. Fatherhood is not a body or a person, it's a state. Are you a good or skillful designer for the policy and the long-term plans of the life of your kids? Join us every Wednesday for Family Issues.
I heard it through a brother that you, oh my brother, you are going through times of difficulty.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome back. I think we have someone waiting online with us, Hajar from KSA. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam, Sheikh.
Yes,
Sheikh,
sister.
I want to ask a question.
Yes.
I bought a land from one of my cousins who was 22 years of age. His younger brother was 18 years old, and they have two other sisters. Now they're over age, like the boy is now by about 32, and I've built the house. The other day he called me, the younger brother, saying at the time when I bought the land, he was not aware that his brother had sold the land to me, and we went to a solicitor, papers were all signed and agreed upon. But he's saying that he had no knowledge of the land, and at the time he was still an orphan. So I don't know what to do now. I've built my own house, because I was supporting the family also. They called me, the young man, and offered the land to me, and I bought it. Now that I've built the house, they want to take me to court again.
But now, whom does this land belong to?
Their father gave them the land, but the father died.
For both of them?
Their land.
Or was it inheritance?
Inheritance, yes.
It was inheritance.
Yes.
But then the older son has the authority to act on behalf of the rest of his own brothers, or like this particular brother?
Yes, yes.
And he
That's
has
what
this
he said.
valid paper or court approved permit? You see, it depends on how actually he acted. If he acted legally, that he's the legal person to represent himself and his brother, and I don't know, the rest of the family members who were part of this inheritance, then obviously this sale is valid. Now they have to settle the matter among themselves, whether he convinced his own brother who was younger and all that. He has that, if he has the authority on behalf of everyone, and it was recorded in a Sharia court that he represented this particular family in any deal, such as selling, buying, and doing whatever with the inheritance, then he is in a legal position. But if you have no problem with that, I mean, if you know that the sale was legal, then even if they take you to court, you still can give your own evidence and saying to the judge, and it will be in your favor.
Oh, thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Hajar. Let me get into something here that I received in the last 2 weeks, something that I had so many emails from people that some I know and some I don't know, and they said that the following: in Germany, the government started a survey to learn that Islam also should be an official religion like Judaism and Christianity. It is a pity that no votes are much more than yes votes. To make it possible for Islam to be the official religion, please cast your vote by clicking the Ja button, and after that, send it by clicking the Zur answering button in the below given site. I don't know how these people think. I mean, first, I tried to check on that, whether this is being true or not, and I couldn't find anything regarding this, whether this is being true or not. That's for one thing. The other thing is, how do you act like this when, I think the government of Germany is wise enough to say that not every Muslim is going to be counted in this particular survey. If, I don't know how this is coming. Is it just only to get the opinion of people before they try to present that law in legal bodies and try to see whether to make the Islamic religion the religion an accepted and official religion? Because obviously I know there are about 3.5 to 4 million Muslims in Germany, and they can represent themselves very well in the legal bodies there. They can push forward in the parliament and other institutions of decision making to say whatever they say. They don't need a survey. Otherwise, whatever, you can't just act on a simple email that comes from an unknown source, and they need you to cast your vote or say no or say yes to something that you're not really aware of. That's why we have some etiquettes, and we have to be wise enough to act even if under goodwill. I know that these people have a goodwill to do whatever they wanted to do, but it was not the right way to do that. If there is something that is going on there, obviously it has to concern only Muslims in Germany and not Muslims all over. Otherwise, unless it's open, and I don't see any point of opening this to everyone, because the Christians can vote, the Jews can vote, the Indians and the Hindus and whatever, the Buddhists and so on. I mean, it's not the right thing to do in this respect. That's why we need to be careful when we get things like this, on the internet, because it is really not going to help us at all in this regard, and we have to be very careful. Now, I do have this very interesting email from Salamat Bello asking about corned beef. And it says, please, I want to know if corned beef is halal or haram, because a friend said, something like that. I couldn't even read the whole, because the whole email is not clear. I don't know whether this is because of the color of, I don't know, yes, because of the color. And it says, because by an Islamic country, also not knowing if the Islamic way of slaughtering was followed. And is it right for one to still consume such a product by saying Bismillah before eating? Well, it comes to whether this is being corned beef or any kind of meat, whether this is frozen, canned, or fresh, and so on. It is important for us to, as you said, to make sure that the slaughtering is right and correct, because you cannot consume any meat that has been slaughtered by an unknown source or in a non-Muslim country where it was not marked as halal, because in that way it has not been certified by an authorized Islamic body that has actually supervised the way that it was slaughtered and kept and met the standards for an Islamic dhabiha. That's why, in this regard, I think we need to be very careful. And when it comes to corned beef, I don't know whether people are aware of what corned beef is, because corned beef actually was an earlier name or process where actually it's not related to corn, but it was like adding salt to the beef before modern means of preserving the meat, such as to add salt to it and to dry it up and to eat it at a later time. This is, of course, something that a lot of people do, such as what we do in Mina, for example, before the modern refrigeration. That's why the days of Tashriq, for example, were called as such, the days of Tashriq, when actually you slaughter the meat and you actually put them into slices, you add up salt to them, expose them to the sun in order to dry up, and of course the salt will prevent any spoiling of the meat. That's why they are called the days of Tashriq, because they are the days when, after the day of slaughtering on the Eid day, this meat is exposed. The same idea was applied in the West, in Europe and North America and so on, where they would salt the meat and preserve it for the future, for future use. Now, if nothing was, first we need to make sure that it was done correctly, according to the Islamic slaughtering principles, which is to cut the jugular veins of the neck and make sure that the blood goes out completely and there's nothing left in the body as part of the blood. That is important, because we're not allowed to eat blood anyway. It's prohibited for a Muslim. Secondly, we need to make sure that nothing of the preservatives was added that is prohibited. Nothing that, like any ingredient of liquor, anything that is prohibited, is, of course, it's not allowed. That's why, if you have any doubt, just don't do it. If you have to just to look at what is written, especially if it's a canned food, and see whether this is a halal stamp has been put on there and it was supervised by an authorized body in the manufacturing company in any particular country, such as Australia, other countries where normally, or Brazil or India and so on, because in these countries there are some Muslim or Islamic bodies that supervise and watch for how meat is being of course processed, beginning with slaughtering the animal and then processing the food and making sure that it follows the Islamic principles. So that is important, and I thank you for raising this particular issue. I'm so glad that we are concerned, but at the same time, when we talk about this very important topic of meat and whether this is being halal or not, let me give you something as an expansion to this idea, where actually some people eat the flesh and the meat of their own brothers and sisters and think this is legal and it's allowed for them to do that. That is by backbiting and by walking with fitna, as we say in ghiba and namima. Ghiba is to backbite your own brother and sister. This is like eating their own flesh, as the Quran described for us, to make it resentful for us not to do it. As Allah says in the glorious Quran, وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَوَّابٌ رَحِيمٌ. So you should not backbite one another. Do you like to eat the flesh of your own brother when it's like alive and it's dead meat? I mean, how would you like to eat a dead body of your own brother? This is exactly like that. And when two women during fasting came to the Prophet ﷺ, they were brought to the Prophet ﷺ, and they were just backbiting people. And then they were fasting. In fact, they were not eating. And he said, come and throw up. So what they threw from inside their stomachs was actually clots of blood. He said to them, قِيئًا فَقَاءَتَا دَمًا عَبِيطًا. It was like thick clots of blood. And this shows that, yes, it really gave the real example of how terrible it would be for someone to eat the flesh of their own brother. All right. Mubin, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Yes, brother.
Hello, friend. I have one question.
Go ahead.
For example, I went to mosque in the evening prayer. For example, Maghrib prayer.
Yes.
I missed one rakah. Then I found the second rakah. Then in the end, I will complete the remaining one rakah.
Mm-hmm.
When we found the second rakah, what should I read? Should I keep on reading with Imam? Surah Fatiha, for example, or Quran?
Okay. Any other question, Mubin?
Yes.
Any other question?
No, I have another question.
Okay, where are you calling from?
From here, from Riyadh.
From Riyadh. Thank you so much, Mubin.
Okay.
I'll answer your question, inshallah. Okay? Now, regarding this particular question, when we catch up with the Imam, either the second rak'ah or the third rak'ah, what should we do? Let's put it clear here that the first rak'ah for you is what you caught with the Imam. So the second rak'ah of the salah with the Imam is your own first rak'ah. And the second and the third rak'ah for the Imam is your own second, so you need to make up the third. Don't make it like I'm missing up the first, so I should act with him like I'm doing the second and the third and then I make up for the first. No. Actually, you're doing continuously, you're doing the second as your own first, the third for him is your own second, and you make up, actually, of course, the third. So in this, that would be because we need to make always the prayers in order. Now, in that respect, what you should do, well, as you know, when you are behind the Imam, you should listen to the Imam while reading until the Imam completes Al-Fatiha. Then he would have a short silence, a short period of silence. That's when you should read your own Fatiha. Okay? All right. So let me take this call and come back to explain. Hanifa, assalamu alaikum. Hanifa?
Alaikum salam, Sheikh.
Can you speak to me from the phone, not when you're listening to TV, please?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sheikh, my question is about the Huda TV. This is my first time to call in this channel. And my question is, if Huda TV can reach Philippines, especially in Mindanao, because this channel, I think this is a very helpful channel to the Filipinos in Mindanao, because they can learn lots of good things in Islam. So
Okay.
I discovered, Sheikh, I discovered this Huda 1996. Since I discovered this Huda TV, Alhamdulillah, lots of knowledge I learned about Islam.
MashaAllah.
So my another question, Sheikh, is about the black magic, because in Mindanao, especially in my province in Mindanao, lots of Muslim, but I can't call them as a Muslim because they practice this kind of evil act. So can you please give light on this black magic, because
Okay.
many people they learn this kind of act, which is, I know this is satanic act, and
Okay.
that's only Sheikh.
All right. Thank you so much, Hanifa. Okay. Going back to Mubin's question regarding what you need to do when you miss some rak'ahs for behind the imam, we should listen to the Fatiha and then read your own Fatiha, because that is a requirement. Although there's a difference among the scholars of Islam, some are saying that you should only depend on the imam and listen to what the imam recites without you reciting Al-Fatiha. Some are saying that you need to recite Al-Fatiha in every rak'ah. Well, if you are able to do it, such as if you catch the imam already before ruku', and there is the time after he says وَلَضَّالِّينَ, and you say, everyone says Ameen, then he waits a little, you start. Even if he starts reciting, you complete your own Fatiha, but in a normal speed without delay, and then just listen to what the imam is saying afterwards, what he recites. If he, of course in the third rak'ah, he doesn't recite loudly, so what you need to do is you read your own Fatiha, and if there is time, you start a short surah until the imam makes ruku'. That's how it should be done, and may Allah accept. One advice here, of course, is to try to catch the salah from the beginning. Even before the iqamah starts, you should be there in the masjid. As soon as you hear the adhan, and of course we have all watches, and we know the beginning of the time for salah, when the adhan is being announced. Even if you don't hear the nearby masjid making the adhan, you should still can know the time. You should hurry up to the masjid and make 2 rak'ahs as a greeting to the masjid, wait inside the masjid, and read some of the Quran, or do some voluntary voluntary prayer, and then when the salah is being announced for iqamah, you're already there, and you catch up, of course, the first row, so your own reward will be even more because of this. So that is my, of course, advice for myself and for others as well. Now, Hanifa, regarding the Philippines and whether this is there is a broadcasting of Huda there, I'm not aware, but I'm sure that Huda is working hard to make the Huda reception available everywhere in the world. And of course, if the people there do have strong satellite system with good receivers, obviously they need a satellite, okay, to that. Okay, do I have Kulthum from Nigeria? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Yes, sister.
Please, I would like to ask a question regarding following the imam. When you meet him after he had already said the first rak'ah, you meet him at the second rak'ah. How would you, after completing the second rak'ah, when he sits down to say the tahiyyah, are you supposed to say the tahiyyah, or you just sit down quietly until he finishes, you rise and complete? I have this confusion regarding you say three tahiyyahs within the same prayer. So I'd like some clarification, please.
Okay, so like,
Thank you.
are you talking about the second or the third rak'ah?
When I meet him saying the second rak'at, he would sit down to say the
For the first tahiyyah.
Would I say tahiyyah with him?
Okay.
Because if I say tahiyyah during that, it means that I would have to say 3 tahiyyahs within the same salah.
Right,
Like
right.
for Maghrib or for
Okay.
Isha.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, sister. Kulthum.
Well, thank you.
All right. I'll answer that question, but let me get back to the issue of the reception. And I, of course, would pass this on to the administration of Huda TV, hoping that inshallah they would answer, they would meet that requirement. Regarding black magic, I think I need to delay the answer to that because they said only I have 30 seconds for the program. So I don't have enough to talk about black magic, and I will talk about magic. And every magic is black, by the way. There is no black magic and white magic. Every magic is black. And thirdly, Kulthum, when you catch the imam in the second rak'ah, for example, you should sit, as the imam sits, because you need to follow the imam. إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. Imam was made only to be followed, according to the hadith. So you need to follow the imam, but say only the first tahiyyat, when he's in the first tahiyyat. If you are in the second one, say also the tahiyyat, which doesn't harm you because you are in dhikr and remembrance. But remember, you have to sit and say something. You cannot sit idle without saying anything. Otherwise, ideas and creeping things would come to your mind. So just busy yourself with a tahiyyat like you are doing in the first tahiyyat, and then again with the second way, third rak'ah for him, second rak'ah for you, you do the tahiyyat. Now whether you do the complete tahiyyat or only the first is a difference among the scholars. Some are saying only do the first tahiyyat in the second rak'ah for you, although it's the third rak'ah for the imam. I hope I made it clear, but inshallah we'll meet, inshallah, in the future, inshallah, next week. Until then, I leave you with Allah's care and protection. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I heard it through a brother that you, oh my brother, you are going through times of difficulty. I know sometimes you feel all alone. Call me anytime when you feel all the way down.
Oh, trials and temptations lie at every corner we turn. It's a test from Allah to see if we succeed or not. My brother, it's a trial that you're going through. So don't be afraid, Allah's there for you. So hold on, Allah's there for you. Hold on, He's listening to you. Hold on.